Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, where six mates unpack three topics over a new drink each week. Fuck it, just go with that. We'll fix it if it's...
G'day everybody, welcome to another episode of Simple Minds. Today we have... Who's not missing? Who's here? Jacob's not here. So we've got everybody else. We've got JB.
What's up?
Trav.
Hey.
Michael.
Hello.
Magic. Matt.
Good afternoon.
And given the pace that I went through that, Matt would probably have said, you're fucking nervous, but no, I'm
about
not.
to say the same thing.
You watched the video last week. You could tell. You knew. That's why you just raised it.
No, I purposefully just went through the same, I reckon, to the same second I just took to introduce you guys last
It
time.
wasn't about that. I could sense your nervous energy.
Wank. But energy is an interesting topic.
I just set you up so you could move into the topic of the day.
We have a friend of mine and a guest in the room today, Janice Wood.
Thank you.
Janice.
Hey, how you going?
Not too bad. She's volunteered some time today. Now, Janice has been a mate of mine for a few years now, and whenever I hit some hectic points in my life, it's probably one of the break glass in case of emergency people I ring. Because as we know, I can get to that point very quickly in different stages of my life. But
So you're saying you're generally a bad friend, but then you just call when you really need something?
Pretty much. Yeah. Fuck, you haven't figured that out. But before we get to why Janice is here, I want to introduce the wines, because given that I'm hosting, apparently I have to bring the wines again. Nothing real special about this other than that I just wanted to drink them. There's a Tirolira. I think we've had this before on here, but it's one of my favourite Rieslings at the moment. So yeah, that's here. 216. If we get through this, because we've got a couple of people not drinking, pretending to do things good for their body.
It's fruity.
It's fruity.
It's fruity.
I can smell it.
It's not fucking fruity, mate. I don't bring fruity
I
wines.
just wanted to say
Yeah,
it
it's
for
not fruity at all.
I've got a Shiraz from Cable Vale, and again, I've got a case of these, not a case of these wines, but a case of Shiraz in the office. I'm just ploughing through them at the moment. I haven't drunk this one
Got a
yet.
drinking problem or what's going on?
I've always had a drinking problem.
He does have an addictive nature.
But yeah, so hopefully we'll get to it, because it is what it is.
So enough about you.
Salute.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We can actually do some really clinking.
Yeah, we can.
And thank God that stupid root beer is not here.
Our fans loved it.
A2W? No, that's a stock. A2F. No,
R2.
A2W.
D.
Oh,
Two.
Oh, shit,
forget
anyway. All right, so Janice, over the years, you and I have talked a lot about different things, but the biggest thing I really appreciate our conversations around is you helping me understand the significance of numbers in my life. And Travis and I have known each other for years and
Unfortunately.
went through...
First of all, can we get a 30-second bio on Janice?
Yeah, 1 second. We're getting there.
Oh,
I just want to introduce Janice, and then Janice will talk about herself.
It's
Is that
kind of
all
like a one-man 7 p.m. project.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's him. Off to you, Conrad.
Travis.
After you, Conrad.
Janice, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm not sure.
No, because these Muppets have taken over. Go for it.
All right. Thanks, guys, for inviting me in to talk about the numbers. I don't just do numbers. I work in healing, and I also work as a graphic designer and do marketing. Okay, so the numbers have come really have worked for me probably in the last 8 years. And I came across them through a book, which, have you shared the bio with them?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll share the bio with you.
Yeah, so I won't go too much into that, but basically the book was called The Life You... Can you remember the title? I can't remember the title, such a long time.
The Life You Were Born to
The
Live.
Life You Were Born to Live,
written
yeah.
by Dan Millman.
That's right, yeah. It's been such a long time ago. I don't actually use the book on a daily basis. I haven't read it from woe to go. Basically, I researched numbers through my family first, and then I just started going to libraries and getting as much information as possible, working with the living and the dead, and found that the numbers were extremely accurate, like pretty much 99% accurate. So then I just continued to keep doing it, and I get calls from all walks of life, in corporate, through to, you know, people in relationship issues or people who just struggling with life.
Is this all
Like
Conrad
Conrad.
from different numbers or?
Okay, do you want me to answer that question?
You go for it, Jen.
Okay.
I mean,
Conrad generally rings me when he's having a bit of a, I don't know, a powerhouse block, I would call it. He's quite, can be quite agitated or just, you know, just stuck, as I would say.
Yes.
Yeah. And so over the years, we've had this battle talking about, I tend to come from a place of heart, and I think pretty much always have done. And number 8 in particular is a number where that is all about the balance of sex, power, money and love. So I always...
we say the word sex and Justin Bourne laughs.
I always...
He's the youngest, isn't
Yeah,
he? No, I'm not.
No, second youngest by a day.
Yeah, but that moustache puts 2 years on you at least.
Yeah, so anyhow, I always, I have a little drawing that I draw with the 8, and it's to do with the heart being placed in the middle and money and recognition. So I always feel when people meet one another, whether it be a business relationship, sexual relationship, or just a relationship, there's usually an attraction comes from, generally from the heart, as I would see it, love, you know. And then generally what happens is either the money takes over or the recognition of the power from the money causes the imbalance, and that's where things go pear-shaped. So that's, I base a lot of my work that I do on that. I can see that straight away with someone. I can see the imbalance, and I work with a lot of men with that in relationships, and when I share that with them, they go, wow, that's exactly what's happened. You know, I've been working, you know, around the clock to make this great, you know, house and holidays for my family, and then it all goes pear-shaped because my wife's got all this time and she ends up meeting someone else, and so on and so forth. And when I share that with them, they go, wow, that's just like, it's so simple, so very simple. It starts out with all the love, and then it just, the imbalance is there. So it's a really useful tool.
The science or the nature of numerology, when you Google it, attaches itself to occult, and what occult tends to be is things that aren't explainable. And we all know we exist in a few different pillars: spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental. Tend to be the pillars that we align to. That overlays with the science of astrology, and the science of numbers goes in the same scenario. And so when I'm looking for awareness and looking for a state of completeness in certain thought processes, I know that it's not all going to come from one spot. So talking to Janice, talking to some other people I have in my life that come from different spaces, allow me to fill in the colours I need to tell a more complete picture as opposed to me sticking in my ego state, status or money, and try to go back to the spot of the centre, which Janice challenges me on all the time. And I know my heart space is one of my biggest challenges. I know that from the people I've spoken to. So whenever I get a chance to talk to that and fill in that space with Janice or whoever else I use, and I use a number of people in my personal consultancy, I'm not saying I disbelieve or believe. It's a case of it's data for me, it's information for me, which when you reduce everything to information, it largely allows you to become informed. So I guess for the skeptics in the room here and those that might be listening, I'm just going to invite you guys just to have an open mind and sit with the information as the information is presented, as opposed to how you source the information. Is that fair enough? Yeah?
Sounds good to me.
Open, simple mind, of course.
Now, numerology, Travis and I, you and I have got a bit of a history with. We used to message each other a bit when we see the sequence number 1 floating around the place.
All the time.
And at times in my life, particularly through rapid phases of growth, we've had I've had a lot of questions as whether I'm doing the right thing. And the number 1, from an angel numbers perspective, Janice, and maybe you can enlighten us on how you see it, but from when I look at it from an angel's numbers perspective, from a guidance tool, the 1 tends to lean towards confirming that you're on the right path. Now, I used to see the 1 on my phone, on clocks, on parking meters, friggin' everywhere. I think it was ridiculous how many times I used to see the sequence number 1.
Okay.
And it still happens from time to time today, but not as frequently as what it was before.
It's a fairly frequent number, though, isn't it? I mean, it's a numeral that pops up absolutely on clocks.
In a sequence.
What do you mean in a sequence?
This is Michael. He's the skeptic of the group today.
1, 1, 1, 1.
Okay, 11 a.m.
That then coincides with a...
But is that your reticular activation?
Potentially, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or your sort of confirmation bias that
For
you're
sure.
thinking about that number,
For
so
sure.
it does show itself to you more
Well,
often.
I'm not thinking about the number. The number appears in the number.
You're imprinted with the thought that the 1 is a powerful number, so you see it.
Without a doubt.
Yep.
Potentially, yes.
But it actually is, because 1 comes first.
Yeah.
So 1 is potentially the leader. You know, if you're in a running race, you get the blue ribbon. It's number 1. So 1 is reference to coming first, you know, being the leader. So, and that's in numerology. It's pretty much when the 1 is talked about, it is talked about being a leader, being not conforming, you know, having their own ideas, and that often can make them come undone too, because they don't like to take advice from other people, because they believe that they know how to do everything themselves.
So when I started seeing a lot of number patterns in my life, and I started researching online what they look for, what they could represent, because everything can represent, and everything can represent whatever you want it to represent, without a doubt, Michael. We talked about this last week. But I came across a book called The Little Book of Destiny by William Kennett, and the quote within that was, "Numerology projections will fascinate you for your entire life." Matt, you're an accountant. Numbers speak. Yeah?
Sure.
We're in business. Numbers, we should be governed by numbers, and, you know, our activities within our business, you know, the way our balance sheet and profit and losses look. You know, so numbers do tell us and do fill in a lot of space. So, however they're imprinted, if you allow them to tell your story, then the story can be told. And the creativity of that is connected to what I believe to be your highest conscious state, which is why I believe that, if you want to tell yourself a story, what is it connected to? Is it connected to that, or is it connected to your vision of your soul, or is it connected to your belief pattern?
Yep.
And so if I was allowing to connect to my belief pattern, then it has no value. If I connect it to my vision or my spiritual state, everything is possible. Everything is possible. So, Janice, maybe we can look at Michael's numbers for argument's sake, since he's presented the first
do you
opportunity.
want to start through
hostile?
the process of...
Well, Janice will explain how she goes through it as she is identified with Michael. So, effectively, we took Michael's date of birth and Michael's full name. Now, Janice, you can explain what you've used.
Yeah, it's probably better if I have a piece of paper to do it. And that's going to be tricky, sort of talking to this plus doing it. But anyhow, I'll see how we go.
You're a woman. You're multi-skilled.
I know, but we'll just see.
Or are you a woman? This will test
Michael,
you.
can you give me your birthday, please?
2nd of the 3rd, 1973.
Okay. So
Jeez, that was last century, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
okay. So basically, this is the little tool that I use when I'm with someone who is stuck. And this is used not necessarily in a paid session. I might meet someone in a coffee shop, or a friend of a friend rings me and says, "Oh, look, I've got 5 minutes. Can you just help me out?" Mm-hmm. So basically, I have this tool. I write the birth date. Often I use the name, but often not. I draw a square and I fill in the numbers. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I put the numbers in, and immediately from looking at that, this is the intellect mind, this is soul, and this is physical. So with this particular person, even if the person is not in the room, I can tell that this person has huge intellect. But having the double 3s here means that he has exceptional sensitivity around his intellect. So he has a lot of thoughts. He has a lot of thoughts, and the thoughts are so close together that he is that causes him grief sometimes. Okay, So that's just one aspect I can tell from here. The next aspect I can tell is that he's extremely organised, could organise anything. Doesn't mean that you are, but if I said to you, could you help me organise something? He could do it.
I would help you.
Yeah, but you would be able to do it. You have the ability to do it. The other thing that shows me is that he has extremely strong presence in a room. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's loud. It just means that he has a presence in a room. It is felt. This here, having only 1 here, suggests to me that he has a lot to say, but doesn't necessarily get the words out often. So he's got, because this is all going on up in his head, he's thinking, so he's not, if someone like Conrad's in the room, he's going to talk first because he's got 3 1s. So, and more overpowering. So,
No. Really?
yeah, very much so. I call Conrad, I have another friend who's very similar to Conrad, and when I go out for coffee with him, this is Natalie, who you must get in as well. I call them both the peacocks because they like enter a room. Because I reference my numbers to animals as well. So yeah,
that would be amazing.
That's a new nickname, I think.
I can just see some graphic design someone needs to do with just the little face instead of the eyes.
Yeah.
Just the peacock.
This also tells me that he is very busy. A busy person. His time, his day is very busy. So and then through the middle here, not having the numbers through the middle here shows me that, particularly when he was younger, would get very frustrated very easily with if something wasn't working, and it might still happen. But this to me is like called the arrow of frustration. But there are a few things that alter this, that if I was sitting with the person, I would be talking. If this person has done a lot of travel, or has, good solid mentors and parents in their life, that alters that quite considerably. But even so, if that person leaves home and doesn't have that support structure around them, then that will alter. So that's just a mini little bit on that person with that tool. Then I add the numbers up and I get 2, 3, 20, which adds up to 25, 7. Our brain works left to right, so these 2 numbers have to be in balance before the 7 comes into play, which is your life path number. So the 2 is about balancing yes and no, that's a balance and cooperation. So I look at yes and no as an example. So, and also being the yes and no is all about you get asked to do a lot of things because you're quite intuitive and quite able to help. So people will draw on you and ask you all the time for help, as whether you say yes or no. But being cooperative or being under cooperative is just as bad. So just as bad to be over cooperative or under cooperative. So people say to me, I'm a very cooperative person, but that can cause you as much grief as being under cooperative. So it's about having a balance there and about learning to say yes or no without giving a reason why. So it's just like, no, I can't help you this time, because people in our heads, we always know who we're going to ask for help. We know who we're going to call. We know who we're going to call for sympathy, empathy. We know. We're really smart. So that's the 2. And then the 5 is about freedom and discipline. So when I talk of freedom, discipline, it's fine to have freedom, but if you don't back it up with discipline, there's no balance. So again, when I'm talking about the 2, the yes and the no, so the 5 is all about freedom and balance, discipline. Then we've got the 7, which comes into play, which is about trust and honesty, but it's also about once you learn the lesson around life, or the lessons that we learn around life, it's about sharing that wisdom with other people. So the 7s, to me, often I describe them as being the born teachers once they learn the lessons. So that's just a real sort of, there's lots of other things I can tell here, but is that enough?
Yeah, I mean,
otherwise
guys,
I can go on for, an hour.
Have we got some questions for Janice in relation to what was revealed there?
Well, why don't we hear from Mike first on his thoughts on that?
And it's interesting because a few of the things that you said make sense. A few of the things don't make sense. Like a few of the things that you said were the sort of bigger things I didn't feel is me, or personally, like in me, I didn't feel it was. Like,
Can you got an example?
or being like the presence in the room. I'm quite an introverted sort of person, so I don't feel that I am unless.
No. I'm talking about your energy. It
Okay.
doesn't necessarily mean. So I was describing. His presence is felt more physically and in the room, whereas yours is a presence it's there. People will see it, but they don't necessarily.
And see, this is what I'm trying to say to you guys. There's levers and things that you can take away from this that you may or may not have known, or that even when I look and try to figure situations going on in my office or on my basketball teams or in my life with my family and friends, there's so many things at play, that we.
But that is just nature of being human anyway. Is that there are lots of things happening at any time.
But then we also get that ability to say, well, fine, presence is this presence, not that presence. And if you don't know that, then you can't give it any.
So you use the numbers to maybe push your mind into a direction. That
Open your mind up.
Open your mind.
Yeah.
Isn't it presenting you with what you maybe should be like or feel like?
Well, it just showed you that you didn't feel the presence that you attach to the word presence because you hadn't considered your energetic presence.
Yeah.
And
for me, it feels like it can be something, but then there's the balance of maybe it's not that. So it sort of becomes a sort of something that I can't.
So when you go away from this now, and you if you want to talk to people around you that you see a lot of, and ask them for how they feel when you move into a room, then you'll get a different. You potentially get some more colour to fill yourself in with.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, but I mean, I am sceptical on numerology, on tarot, on things like that. So I want to be.
I find it interesting that you are though, Michael, because.
I'm very spiritual. But
you're a person that has talked about opening your mind.
Yes.
And we can talk about how open our minds truly are and whether you can open a mind in your present state or whether we need to use, as they did on that Joe Rogan show, a substance to try and open your mind with.
Yep.
Okay. So
it's a physiological
but if we say we're skeptics, are we really truly open-minded? And if we're not open-minded, how successful are we going to be? Because if there is so much data in the world, are we really just going to say that doesn't really matter?
I mean, anything can matter anywhere, can't
sure,
it?
100%.
Put meaning to anything.
Exactly right.
Do you use numbers? We
just talked about watching Elon Musk talk about creating shit that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yet we want to be skeptical on things that potentially have. How do you become the creators? How do you become the geniuses if you're going to shut your minds off?
I'm not shutting my mind off to anything.
But saying skeptical does shut your mind off.
Well, using the word skeptical does.
Yeah, that's what you've used.
In regards to just using numerology.
But you've said you're a skeptic.
On numerology.
But that makes you a skeptic.
On numerology.
Exactly. But skeptic is a word. And I'm saying, fine, let's remove the word. Is it plausible?
Anything is plausible.
Is it plausible?
To me, no.
That's still not plausible to you?
Because to me, numbers are a human construct, yeah? They haven't been around for the life of the universe, numbers, have they?
No, they haven't.
No.
Energy has.
Energy has, yes. And I'm very in tune with my energy. I can feel my energy come and go and how I feel in any situations.
Yep.
I'm much better at feeling my energy, not from a numerological...
So you don't feel your energy presence in a room?
Well, I suppose I do, but I don't assign a number.
But so supposing you do means you do or you don't? I mean, do you feel your energy presence in a room?
Of course I do. I mean, I'm human. I feel...
So then what Janice said has some plausibility.
But it has plausibility in any sense.
So we're either saying it does or it doesn't.
Look, exactly. We're saying it does or it doesn't.
Let's investigate it further.
I'm sorry to... I'm not...
No. I just got one little...
Yeah.
If you have... I'm going to give you your secret challenge. Ooh. Now, the secret challenge is based on the numbers missing, and you add them up, 6, 5, 8 and 4.
Yep.
You going to add that up for me? 6, 5,
oh God, not on
8
Friday afternoon with that. That's 12.
23.
Yeah, thank you, Travis.
Okay, and then I add the numbers together, 2 and 3 to 5.
Yep.
You're Jordan. Oh, no.
Exactly.
No,
For a moment.
In my
1
research,
second,
I
you were
did
Jordan.
see that number 23 was quite a powerful number, I see.
It is, yeah. That's why I was just going to get to that.
Yeah.
I'll save the best bit for last. So this is your secret challenge, which is the 5, which is all about success and opportunity has surrounded you all your life. What have you done with it?
That's a good question.
Sweet fuck all.
So the game we're playing at the moment, what we are playing with, if we are going to distill it down, forget about numbers. Numbers is a way that Janice has allowed herself to connect with the highest intuitive state.
Yeah.
Okay? So numbers is the language she's using to tell you a story.
Yep.
Okay? It's actually not numerology.
Conrad, I'm not a skeptic with this. I think it's quite cool, actually, with reading into it. But looking from Michael's point of view, being a skeptic in one situation in your life, say if it is numerology or something, doesn't mean that you don't want to open your mind. It's just saying that you're not open to that part of it. You're open to a lot of other parts. But like, if you want to open your mind, do you have to be open to every little thing that comes across your feet?
I think if you're going to select, you're going to contaminate. That's your ego.
I'm going to cut in. I'm going to cut in because people like yourself, Michael, I come across people like you all the time. And usually what I find is that you're science-driven, fact-driven. So you have to, facts have to present themselves and add up for it to be
I'm not
logical.
saying that's true, though.
No, I'm just... No,
I don't think it's true for me either.
No,
I don't think it's true.
I'm just saying people like yourself, this is what that call themselves skeptic in what I do. I generally find that after, it might be 2 weeks, 6 months, something will happen and I usually get a call from that person. And that's pretty much happened with everyone that has either challenged me on it, because I don't challenge back because I believe what I do.
Yep.
So, and I respect your...
Same.
Yeah,
completely.
So... but I can guarantee you that has happened where person has phoned me usually actually said, oh, look, I really need to see you because something has happened, what you've said.
And I think things like tarot and numerology...
I don't do tarot.
They're just tools.
They're just exactly. Are tools to have a different perception on things. Maybe it's reading philosophy or to thinking about the world as a simulation that allows you to open your brain up a little bit.
So, Janice... Sorry.
No, you're up.
No, I'm just
it wouldn't be a podcast without it. So.
Janice,
I'll cut him off.
I want to obviously.
So Matt,
we'll give you an opportunity because we've also spoken to Matt. You can pick anybody here because if you're going to do it live, then go for it. But who wants to volunteer their date of birth?
What about Jacob that's not here? Because he said it's interesting when you do it when somebody.
Well, let's do it with one more person here, and then let's look at Jacob when he's not here.
I'm curious as
well. But anyone have Jacob's date of birth?
Okay.
7/1/82.
So for everyone listening, Janice is drawing like a noughts and crosses.
Sudoku,
Yeah, and in the bottom left-hand corner, it goes 1, and then from the top of that goes 2, 3, and then the bottom in the middle is 4, 5, 6, and then the bottom on the right-hand side is 7, 8, 9. And she basically places the birth date in each of those boxes. So Matt's got 1, 7 in his number, and he's got 2 1s and an 8 and a 2.
We'll put a photo of it.
Yeah, and so
you photograph Janice, so you have to rewrite it.
Then Janice basically adds a few numbers up and calculates where there's numbers are and where there's not numbers, and that's where she takes that reading from. So if you're listening and you sort of want an understanding of the pen scratching,
you should be a sports commentator.
This is creativity, right? Which I believe is your highest conscious state.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fascinating.
All right. Thank you for that. I'm glad that was you, not me.
That's all right.
Okay. Matt. Do you go by Matt or Matthew?
Matt.
Is it Matthew? Was it Matthew?
It is.
In...
Yep.
Okay.
1 T.
Yeah. All right. Cool. 1 T.
Couldn't afford the second.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll do that.
God. You can tell him.
Is that like doormat?
Oh!
I have been called a doormat in other languages that have failed to have a difference.
We did have this conversation. I had this conversation with Conrad about that.
Okay. Looking for anything you could find.
All right.
I wasn't looking, bro.
So, again, I've added up the numbers. We get to a 2810. So, the 2, which we already talked about, balancing yes and no. Yep. I can already see Yuri. a big yes man. Extremely yes, and that causes you a lot of grief. So you need to bring that back to a saying no. And a good exercise for you is for 2 weeks, you just say no.
On the link to the Get Amplified.
Everybody out. Cool. No,
After this episode.
I appreciate that. It's definitely something that I have a challenge with.
Yeah, so I can see that.
Yep.
And then the 8 comes into play, which we talked about, the balance of power, love, money.
That's a little bit of swaggy that I've got going, is it?
Yeah, well...
That's where the conflict arises between the two.
Well, it's interesting because
I come from my heart.
you either have a lot of money or you don't have a lot of money.
Yep.
So, but it's how you...
Yeah, you've
done both. That's what I'm saying. So that's the balance of having it. And so how did you get it? And then how did you lose it? Were you being too generous? Were you being too kind? Were you giving away from the heart? So that's what when I exercise that I was talking about, the tip and the balance of that. So that's about the 8. And then once that's in balance, the 10 comes into play. So the 1 is about balancing your creativity or your addictions, that's the balance there. And then the 0 is around unique gifts. So people I usually find with this number have healing hands. So whenever you place your hands on people, or you have, no, I'm serious. People like.
It's interesting because you're not an extremely touchy person, but you do like to initiate contact.
I do.
It does.
With people. Like
Most
a big,
mornings.
Big bear hug.
Like that, or a healing hand on the shoulder or something.
Fist pump.
I can back that up for sure.
In your face.
Yeah. So touch is very important to you. So. Okay.
What's your love language?
You've got to earn it.
What is your love language?
My love language is...
Time?
No.
Time or touch?
Service.
Oh, you're a service. That's because you're a business owner.
No, this particular number combination is act of service.
Yeah.
So the 10s
I was
are.
joking.
The 10s are. Okay.
See?
So and the 0 is also about having unique gifts, which we mentioned. So things like charity, setting up an orphanage, that is something that you could do.
This is like an orphanage.
No problems. Okay. I'm
Don't mind us.
I'm so glad this has not been filmed.
It's not? Or it is?
I'm going to hide. Now I'm going to really hide behind this. Okay. All right. So that's your basic numbers, talking about your numbers. Now, again, you have a very strong presence in a room, energy-wise as well. Now, where yours is different is you actually, because having the 2 ones suggests to me that you are exceptionally good to have on a debate. You see both sides of the argument very well, whereas this one overpowers his views. And this one here, he doesn't have the language to get him across. It doesn't come out quick enough. It would come out if he had time.
About 3 days later, usually.
Yes, I said if you had time, to prepare yourself for it, it would.
Damn, I should have said that.
It would come out beautifully. Yeah. But
that is actually true.
Yeah, it's because it's there's too many thoughts going on up here.
That's very true. I can think of countless situations where even, for example, people on one side or the other of an argument would be frustrated with me because I'm able to articulate and talk to both sides.
Yeah, well, if you think of 2 and you split it down the middle, it's about seeing both sides of the argument. Yeah. So that's how I look at it. You very, very busy, exceptionally busy, and very, very soulful. So people like to come and like be around you,
get touched by you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. People
be careful of touching in orphanages.
Now, interesting, your secret challenge is 9, which is all about getting in touch with your spiritual side and your hobbies. So, do you have hobbies? Do you actually do hobbies?
It depends what you call a hobby. Oh, my whole life's a hobby. I enjoy everything I do. But yeah, look, sure, I play music. I love sports. I do a lot of different things.
Are you doing much of it at the moment?
Not enough of a lot of.
Yeah, well, that will bring exceptional balance to your life if you actually allocate time for spiritual stuff and hobbies.
So that's what Secret Challenge is.
That's his secret challenge.
That's the thing. Yeah,
that will bring a lot of balance to his life if he allows that.
But right now you can't see the time to do that, right? And what James is saying.
I don't allow myself.
Yeah, if you bring this in, you will get more. Yeah,
very,
energetically, you're going to get more.
Very much so. Very much so.
There's your challenge, bro.
Wow.
That's good. Look,
And I do have one other thing to say. With the intellect, like, because you've got less on the intellect, it doesn't mean that you're. It doesn't.
I was about to say I agree with everything you said.
It doesn't mean that you don't have intellect. It just means that you have had to work for your intellect. That's what this suggests to me, that you have applied yourself to obtain your knowledge. And if it's not now,
fucking stupid. So
if it's not now, when you're born, this is how you're born with these numbers. So if I spoke to your mum, she would say that you worked for your whatever your results that you got at school.
You did, mate.
No, it's interesting. That's the only thing that I would find. Like, I think I worked for my more emotional side of my intelligence. In terms of, I had to work very hard along, say, like an English path, but anything down the maths, science type path, I was like,
that's what
last minute would be able to just pull together and figure it out and get, like, sort of academically.
I suppose, but I look at maths more from an energetic point of view, right. Whereas because maths is something you add up, it's like you do it quickly. Yeah. English is something you've got to think about, write, and put the words together. So what I'm saying is that you had to apply yourself. It's interesting. This has actually been good doing this, because when I'm saying it, it's like you assume that people understand what you mean. So yeah.
Cool. That's
awesome. That was really cool.
Anybody want to throw any skepticism at that lot?
I want to get done.
I just messaged Justin then, because our birthdays are one day apart. I'm the 16th of the 1st, 1990.
But it would make so much difference.
And Justin's the 15th, but we have 3 ones in our grid, and it's all about the present. Oh shit! All about the presents and that sort of stuff. And
is that you?
I've got the biggest present.
What's the what's Moffat's birthday? Does anyone know?
Oh jeez,
no idea.
Are we starting to see a little bit of stuff that is useful?
Definitely, it opens your mind to possibilities.
It's great self-reflection, awareness.
I love this one, because this one is so accurate.
I think this one has this one too.
No,
this one means Justin Bourne.
No, it is Justin Bourne. But interesting with his is he's a straight A. And looking at all you guys...
We thought he was queer for a while there.
Looking at all of you guys in the room, he is like presented like clean cut, hair's perfect, everything's...
You couldn't tell he grew up in Rockingham, could you?
No, but what I'm saying is that his presentation is very important to him.
You should have seen him last week.
And also... he is exceptionally hard on himself, which then means he's very hard on other people.
Yes.
Correct.
Can we get some staff members in to verify this?
Ask my team.
So a little tip for you is to be more kinder to yourself and not be so hard on yourself, so that therefore that will allow you to be more softer and kinder to other people, not have hard expectations. The 8 is very... I will draw if someone in the room here had lots of 4s in their numbers. When I look at 4, I look at a table. It has 4 legs. 4s tend to follow processes. Great to have working in your business, because they will follow through on procedures.
My wife is 4th of the 8th. 70, and she is like procedure driven.
Yeah, but she's got 4 and then 8.
Stop it, Michael. You might not be a skeptic by the end of it.
Yeah. I love it.
He's turning for the queer guy.
So if you think of a table, that's 4, and then you double the table, 8. So double.
Stronger table.
Yeah, it is like double the hardness, double the everything has to line up. Things have to be.
What was happening today, JB?
Everything has to be perfect. And generally very generous people, very kind and stuff. But the lesson for them, the major lesson, is to be kinder and not to be so like everything have to line up and everything has to
On
be
yourself,
so perfect.
like
On
the
yourself. Yeah. Like when you're getting dressed and stuff.
What's Justin's secret challenge?
Well, we have to add the numbers up, boys. Okay, so we're ready to add?
Yep.
3, 6, 2, 4, 8, and 7.
30.
Okay. So your secret challenge is you need to learn to be more social, but not just on your terms. I'm not saying you're not a social person,
This is interesting.
but you tend to be social on your terms.
Can you read out your Instagram post from yesterday, Justin? Did you not say that you needed to be more social? You dropped out of social activity.
This is why I said this is interesting. But more importantly, even from a V's perspective, your partner.
No, look, it's super true. And I balance between, I guess, introversion and extroversion. And I guess the social piece is, I acknowledge, actually, even when we're in, I think, Singapore of late, and or in business in general, one of the things, and actually part of the reason I reached out to Conrad is I thought Conrad did this quite well, is that I failed to socialize, I guess. So socializing's always been a big challenge for me, and I always kind of do it when it suits
you.
Suits me. Yeah. So it's very interesting, the numbers.
So what can a day in difference mean with Travis?
That means that he's a 27-9. So
16th of the 1st, 1990.
yeah.
And what does that make his lesson?
And then he has
To not be a schmuck.
He has the 6 here and not the 5. Oh, and this is interesting.
Here we go.
You got to get a haircut, bro. That is disgraceful.
What?
The haircut and the mustache combination ain't working.
Thanks,
working
Travis.
for me.
So that's
He's
you
married.
there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're 20.
Should I have 2 9s though?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So with yours in particular, this shows. So out of everyone here sitting in the room, you'll probably have the ups and would you say that you find yourself going up and down a bit? With like more sensitive?
I used to as a kid.
Yeah.
I worked really hard at leveling myself out.
Yeah.
So not so much now, but
I think he's a lot better these days. I've known you for a while.
yeah,
too.
As a kid I was very,
Well, you got to
very-
remember this is based on like when you're. This is based on when you were born, and then things come into it. So once you learn that lesson, then so would you say that travel was that helped
Contributing
with,
factor?
Yeah, was that the contributing factor that allowed you to balance that out?
I think so, yeah. A big part of it. A lot of combination of that sort of stuff. But travel was a big part of my life for sure.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So, and because you have very high intellect as well, the sensitivity around that causes you grief. So you question yourself.
Don't think intellect
Yeah.
by academic intellect, right? This
No,
is what-
because I'm not academic intellect.
but you are very intellectual, right?
Oh no, you are extremely, and it's because if you aren't, if you think yourself you're not, that's because it's the sensitivity that's stopping you, the fear around that.
Yeah, so it's what we attach to that word that tends to shut us off to things.
Yeah. No, I know I'm not an academically intellect person, but intellect in other ways for sure. And it's interesting, the sensitivity part. I've never really acknowledged that part of myself for a long time. That's something I've
I don't know, man. I reckon when you and I have been talking about stuff, your emotional intellect is actually quite high for a person your age, and I would suggest you are quite sensitive to certain situations.
Yeah, but not knowingly. I didn't ever acknowledge that. So it's nice to hear that actually.
Just to give you an idea on this, these are my numbers here. So most people who would meet me would say I don't have a strong intellect.
Yeah.
My intellect is more based on things that are just in general, like I don't know stuff. As in, I haven't gone to school and study and got a degree and all that sort of stuff. My intellect is purely because I learned to have learned to listen to, kids of this age, and so I've got walks in my walk of life. I've got friends that are 90, I've got friends that are 6 that I look to.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So your intellect might be like that. But it's still intellect.
Yeah, no,
it's just that you haven't obtained a degree or
Yeah, no, interesting.
So we look, and that's that sensitivity, because the conformity of life is that we get married, we have kids, we obtain a degree or something.
Yeah.
So
Oh, interesting. Very cool. What's my secret challenge? I'm very interested to see that.
Your secret challenge.
To not be a douche.
Well, we know that. But...
Shave the moustache.
How many times have you said that?
I'm just trying to subliminally put it into it.
So yours,
I'm all sensitive over here. And
You
call
are.
me a douche.
But you're a bit stupid.
That's all right.
So you've got. So we need to add the numbers up: 3, 2, 5, 8, 4, and 7.
29. Is that 29?
That'd be one number difference too.
23.
No, I think 29. Because
Yeah.
So your challenge is to. This is going to be interesting. Okay, your challenge is what is your relationship like with your mum and your.
Please, let's answer this question.
Oh, shit.
This is a bit scary doing this online
no.
because your mum could have passed away, and that's would have been a really bad question to ask, wouldn't it? So yeah.
You know what? As a young kid, it was really awesome, my relationship with my mum. But as I grew into myself and I learnt to who I wanted to be, it definitely fractured.
And Travis is the baby in the family too, so...
Yeah. And... Yeah, so I struggle with my mum a little bit, although I love her. Love you, Mum, if you're listening.
Love you too, Pete.
But yeah, definitely.
So how would you say that's affected relationships with women because of that?
Early on, yes, and I had to work through that.
Yeah,
for sure.
So basically, the lesson is, or the secret challenge is, to learn to sort the relationships out with women in general. So generally, if I was working with you, I'd say, well, what's your relationship like with your mum, or like the closest, your girlfriends, or not necessarily girlfriends, but just girls in general. Like how does that work for you?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, when I was growing up, I used to be able to hang out with girls a lot easier. I'd associate with girls a lot easier rather than guys. I could never actually...
and that would have been because of this sensitivity.
I'd never had a lot of guy mates. Like had a lot of like girl mates. Rather than... Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
actually.
well, basically the two in this contents that I'm using is based on intuition and based on nurturing and stuff, which we get that traditionally from our mother.
Yeah.
And then the 4 here is about hard work, that table, structure, process, which we tend to get from our father.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you've had to work for, that's how I would see you've had to work for those.
Yeah.
It just hasn't come natural. You've had to apply yourself with that. So yeah.
So,
there you go.
hey,
Well,
that's it, all right?
Crazy.
So when we're playing with this type of stuff, Janice, and like I said, I tend to ring up when I'm in problems with people around me, and you tend to give me some tips as to how to handle them. And a lot of the times you're spot on. But the question I have for you guys, and I brought Janice in on this premise, is because for me it's about understanding yourself first. You're your ground zero. Yeah? the Bazinga dude, what's his name? Off
Sheldon.
You know how he has that ground zero on his couch? Ground zero is who you are, and everything you reference, everything around you is a reference from your ground zero. And if you don't know yourself well enough in the areas of physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental, then what lens are you putting on the situation? Does that make sense? So I use disc profiling tools, I use the Enneagram, I use Janice Wood numbers, I speak to psychics, I use tarot, I use energy, we talk about pendulum, I use anything I can to reference a situation.
Why do you think that is?
Because
I mean, you're Catholic religion.
Everything is multidimensional and everything comes back down to energy and intuition. At our highest point, we are intuitive.
So you just use them as kind of tools to maybe...
To fill in the colours.
To something.
Yeah, to add more colours and to give me some plausibility around the opportunities or possibilities. Because I don't want my experiences of me growing up to impact what a situation could really be. Does that make sense?
I think so.
I think it's a tool to be able to use to reflect rather than get hung up on and go,
exactly,
this is, the way I need
this is going to happen
life.
Or this is what's going to do.
But it's when you get that information, what you do with it is the valuable thing. If you want to live it day by day, right to the letter of the law, that's your choice. Like, it wouldn't be my choice. I would use it to make myself better in the ways I want to be. But yeah, I think it's a useful tool, but it's not something that you need to write down every day. And I'm going to do this and do it to the letter of the law. And that's my.
Oh well, I don't use it like that.
Yeah, so for it to be useful, you have to have an open mind.
It's insightful. It's just insightful information. And I do not use it. I don't even know if I. Like, for instance, if I'm going out with a guy, I don't go, oh, what's your birthday? I can't go out with you.
On the first day. Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't.
I do. I just ring you up and give you their details.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Because I can feel the energy on people and stuff. And pretty much like with the numbers, because Conrad's an 11, like I'm an 11. But,
do these guys know how great the number 11 is, Janice?
Yeah, I know. The 11's a master. I was like,
11 is a what?
It's a master number.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Dave Clare's at 11 as well.
Yeah.
So we're always
the different 11s. He said the other way around.
So basically, the 11s are here to provide service and to help people. Extremely compassionate, and that's where we get sort of probably our lesson is to be not less compassionate, but just understand that not everyone is as compassionate as us, has the time for people. Like Conrad has a lot of time for people because he truly believes in that person, or even if the person's not going so well, he will still believe in that person. You know what I mean? So, and I'm like that as well. You have to cross me pretty badly for me to totally not talk to that person. I will distance myself from people because of their behaviours or whatever. But generally I will still have time for them, but I just make less time once they've, like I have two sisters. I have a sister who has schizophrenia and I have one that has bipolar. So I've grown up with, with behavioural stuff that I've had to deal with. So, and that's nothing to do with my numbers, but my numbers have held me in good stead for that because I haven't judged them and, I've accepted them for who they are. So, yeah.
Guys, any questions for Janice in wrapping up?
Well, I've just got sort of the question of why numbers, though. Like, what do the numbers actually mean? Because, like I said at the beginning, numbers are kind of like a human construct. They're not something...
But so are words, Michael.
Sorry?
So are words, though.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, that is a good question. It is a good question because when I came across the numbers, prior to even doing the numbers, people used to say to me, well, how do you know that? Like, and I'd say, well, that's how I see it, The numbers just gave me a tool to explain how I saw someone or I came across it. I believe that I came across it because it actually gives me more validation for how I see it. I with my numbers, I'm missing. I've only got the 2 in my numbers, so I get as Travis can get quite sensitive, so I will back down into a corner if people don't want to. Whereas it's taken me a long time. Now I feel I'm more confident now saying something when I see it. Whereas before I used to sense something was going to happen, so I would leave. Whereas now I feel like, I can stay. It's not my problem that this person's going to, hurt someone. We're going to have to call the police.
Yeah.
I'm quite like, I see things happen before they happen, basically.
So in a way, the numbers don't really matter at all, really.
No, it's just a translation tool.
It's just a tool that if I'm sitting with someone, I can go, I can earn their trust pretty quickly.
But can that be done? That can obviously be done in a myriad of different ways.
Oh yeah. I can use it without the numbers, but this is very powerful. Like if I'm sitting with someone and
it's tangible.
They don't know me.
So we're making the unknown kind of,
and I don't know them.
Exactly right. We're taking the spiritual language and interpreting it into our language so that we can understand.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm all for it. If it makes people more positive or pushes them in the right direction for whatever reason, relationships.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. I was in a session helping someone with a coaching session. They were getting a certificate, and they needed me to just fill in. So I was doing the coaching session. And at the end of it, because she knew I worked in healing, and she said, "Oh, you know what? Number 4 comes up all the time for me." And I said, "Look, I'll do your numbers at the end just for a bit." So I did her numbers, and she was a 4, and which she was just like, "Oh, wow, that's just crazy." And then she said, "You know what? My husband, rewind. I said to her, the 4 is all about being, structure, process, routine, extremely routine." And she just went, "Wow." She goes, "You have just given me the reason why I'm such a bitch on the weekend," because her 9 to 5, she's like, her whole week is so routine. It gets to the weekend, and her husband says to her, "Let's go for coffee." And she's like, "No, I've got to make the beds. I've got to do lunches. I've got to plan this." And she goes, "You've just given me a reason as to why." And so now she's changed that. And she's messages me now saying how her husband can't believe the difference on the weekend now, because she actually has given herself permission not to be so structured on the weekend. So that's just like a little, and that happened literally in 3 minutes.
Yeah, and that sort of thing's brilliant.
Yeah, and it was.
So,
but she didn't see it as a problem. But she said for her, she noticed she was a real bitch on the weekend and couldn't work out why she was. When it got to the weekend, she'd be like, "Wow,
Why is Conrad a bitch all the time then?
Shut up. I know you got to go, Janice, but just real quickly, there's no one in the. So we're going to talk about Jacob. You've done a reading or you've done number profiling on Sam Cawthorn. We all know Sam. He was in this room a couple of weeks ago. What's his number?
He's an 8.
And what does that mean again?
He's a 35-8. About the power, the love, and the money, and all that sort of stuff. Freedom and discipline, and the 3 being the extremely sensitive.
Can you guys see? So can you guys see Sam as an 8 as Janice defines it?
Why is it not going to me?
Sure. Sorry, say that again.
He's a 35-8. So 3 about sensitivity and expression. The 5 is about freedom and discipline. And the 8 is so he's immaculately dressed all the time, very precise with his words, and he's extremely hard on himself. In fact, I went to one of his talks, and then I went to another thing, and then I was supposed to get up and talk about myself for a minute, and I it was all in my head, a bit like I was just like, I can't do this in a minute. I can't talk about myself in a minute, and he was really annoyed. Like he goes, "Oh, there's some people in this room that I'm really disappointed that," and I was like, whoa. And that's a good example of that 8. So he was being really hard, but his argument is that he's like that because he wants to press your buttons so that which is 8s tend to do that. They do it exceptionally well.
Guys?
Well, firstly, Janice, where can people find you if they want to reach out?
Healing Vine on Facebook.
Healing Vine, V-I-N-E.
Yep.
And it's Janice Wood.
Yeah.
I've been told to mention Janice's full name first and last underline. Janice Wood.
It's good to see it was at the end of the episode, but no doubt you'll
During sign off.
after
And you can read.
yeah, we're 40 episodes in, but after 80, you might master.
I
the,
did say
hosting.
Janice Wood.
And did you get that shirt from the Peacock section of the store?
So thanks for tuning in to the end, people. Thank you, Janice, for coming along. I know you're going to run.
I would actually love to stay because I feel this is just getting going.
It
like
is.
I
It
really,
always does, Janice.
I really
We
feel.
all come down to the tennis court.
The B-roll is always the
that
best
never
roll.
gets released is the best role. That was amazing. Thank you very much. Very insightful.
Yes,
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Cheers.
Champagne.
Jaws.
Thank you for having me.